All right. Hi, John. Thank you so much for joining me here today on Vonvo.com to discuss, U.S. banking system corruption. Just before we get our conversation started, I just wanted to go over two quick things with you. One, today's March 31st, 2013, and I'm recording this conversation right now. After the recording's completed, I'll be uploading this video to the internet to our YouTube channel. Is that okay with you?
Yes, it is.
Great. And then on top of that, great. And then on top of that, here at Vonvo, we're all about our conversation staying both civil and valuable. And we don't want there to be any personal attacks against anyone, although right now there's no one else speaking. But in case someone else comes in, are you fine with that?
Well, can I beat up on Rothschild and Rockefeller?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
All right, great. All right. So then why don't we just jump right into it? Why don't you take it from here? Why don't you give us, ultimately the overall position of the Occupy movement, which you participated in, and how this, the topic is so important and what it's all about. And if any questions come up while I'm listening, I'll just kind of, throw them at you. How does that sound?
Perfect.
Great.
Read off any bottom that I don't see.
Exactly.
Well, okay, so how can the banker, your friendly banker, use his power of running the banking system to hurt you, is the question. And should anyone have that power? Okay, well, it all comes back to grade 9 algebra. Mortgage means death, gamble. So the perfect model is poker chips. Because, and I keep forgetting to have it with me. Poker chips never lose their value. They're worth what's backing them up in the cage. And government chips, for some reason, lose value year after year. Hard to explain how they do that, but it does. And yet, both hardwares are identical. So, what is causing inflation of this one that is not causing inflation of that one? Okay, I did a little engineering analysis, and I found that if you were to play a game, John von Neumann, man who wrote the book, The Theory of Games and Economic Behavior, said important economic questions arise in a more elementary fashion if you can model it and then flip coins 1,000 times and do a statistical analysis to get your answer. And therefore, 10 guys put up their watches, collateral, or their houses, or their whatever, their farms, and they all get 10 units of money, and they all promise to bring back 11. Or they all borrow 10 gallons of liquidity from the pump house and promise to bring back 11. Now, in a real economy, what the businesses do is they take their 10 and they produce goods. Then they got to put them up for sale, and they got to raise their price to at least 11 to settle with the pump house, right? So 10 units of liquidity got dumped in the economic pool, and now they're all trying to come up with 11 to go settle with the pump house. Mortgage. Death, gamble, just like musical chairs. So at the end of the game, 9 guys end up coming up with their 11 gallons, principal plus interest, and the 10th guy got squeezed out and lost his farm or his house or his watch. Now, the banker says to the winners, how many chips you got? 100? Or how many gallons? 100? Well, now there's only 9 watches, so your chips have inflated. And yet, economics teaches that inflation is more money chasing the watches. And I've just shown you how it can also be same money chasing less watches after foreclosure. Now, why would economics only teach must be more money when we're watching less watches every day? So, economics is a cover story for the banking scam. Now, everybody who borrowed 10, everybody who owed 11, we're all at the mercy of the banker who can turn on the tap in the pump house. Now, I've only got 10. I can't come up with my 11th. No matter how much I do business and trade, we're all pretty good competitors. We're all coming up with the same 100 Gs each, whatever, and I can't pay my 10 extra. Well, the banker can say, sorry, I need the money and I got to foreclose. But to the other guy, he can say, no problem, I'll turn on the tap, lend you 10 more, pay the interest, and I'll lend you enough to go buy that guy out of auction for 30 or 40 cents on the dollar. That is the power of holding the tap in a pool full of people with not enough water. You get to choose who lives and who dies. Hell, you get to make some people die if you want to let other people live. So That power of life and death in the death gamble is something we shouldn't give to anybody. And that is how the major corruption happens. Now, this has gone on through all of history. I mean, there's a great book, the greatest history book on banking and antiquities, called The Babylonian Woe by David Astell, and you can read it all on the internet. And chapter after chapter is about fractional reserve loan sharking in antiquity. As the, basically money started out as a receipt for grain. Okay? And you'd leave your grain at the storehouse, they'd give you a receipt. Matter of fact, if the grain got bad, you'd knock a few percent off the receipt while you held it. But regardless, the temples used to issue the money, the tokens, the government's chips to pay for stuff, like King Henry's tallies, who used to split us like a wooden tube. One half was the money, one half was the stub. This was now 10 pounds of gold, go build me a bridge, and here's the stub at tax time to tally up. Same idea in early history. But then along, here come these caravans with exotic goods and and spices and neat swords and dancing girls, but they want gold. They use gold for money. And you can always sell stuff to get gold. Everybody can do that, but gold is the international money set up by the gold bullion brokers 5,000, 10,000 years ago. They were already connected, okay? I mean, don't talk Jews to me. They're only like 2,500 years. I'm talking 5,000 years worth of money lenders doing this to the planet through caravans. So here comes the guy with his caravan, and he lends out gold and whatever, and people buy in his fair, and they get meat. And the drunken chieftain, signs up, pledges his kids to get a neat sword, whatever. Then the master of the caravan leaves. Now, these are caravans with a lot of fighting men, because he deals in gold and in slaves. Okay, 1,000 slaves in the caravan, 300-400 guys guarding them. When this guy comes to visit, you got to be nice, but he's a wonderful man, genteel banker. Talk reasonable loans if you need money. Here's the point, though. If you're the guy who can't come up with your 11th chip, and you got to come up with that piece of gold, or one of your kids, a lot of guys are going to go and they're going to try and steal their neighbor's gold, or they're going to try and steal their neighbor's kid. You get it? So, if you look at the history of all empires throughout history, they're always fighting encroachments on the borders, right? It's always raids on them and then raids back, because everybody's trying to kidnap everybody else's kids to pay off the money lenders they all owe to. Get it? And that's the cause of wars throughout all of history, having to come up with the debt service in gold or in slaves. And, of course, you're going to go raid the next guy's farm before you send your kids away, right? Because they're your next soldiers. You don't want to send away your soldiers. You're going to end up being taken next time. And that's the kind of death gamble situation people were faced in antiquity. And David Astell's book goes into gory detail about how when you lost your death gamble, they could take you and they could work you to death rolling an ore for 2 years, or they could stick you in a gold mine and work you to death in 6 months. But when you lost your death gamble in those days, death was the result. Wow. For owing more debt than than you could pay. So, they did this throughout history, and David Astell's book chronicles it all. And once you understand how the death gamble scam works, everything fits in, and you say, God, these guys been doing it to humans for thousands of years, these gold bullion broker, moneylender scammers. So, but they also rule the world, and no king can resist the international cartel, because if one king acts up, figures out he knows about money and doesn't want to pay no interest anymore, they'll finance all the kings around him to go get him. And then you see evidence of that throughout all of history. Just go look who financed whom, and you'll find out who was meant to win the wars. So, throughout all of history, the money, big money, has ruled. So much so that all the great saints of Judah and all the great and Christian, Jesus and the saints there and all the Muslim saints, all decry loan sharking. And yet the machine is global, established, and it seems like there's nothing we can do about it. And sort of that was predicted, because even Jesus sort of understood that this can never be overthrown until the day when information comes from the clouds and people are instantaneously connected and can find out truths that could be hidden before. So basically, a high-tech world is what it would take to defeat the loan shark scam. And it seems that's what has happened now. So back in the early 1980s, when I first ran for parliament to legalize gambling, because I got tired of being busted because I was a professional gambler, and then I ran for parliament, wondered about chips, figured out inflation, and then I kept running. Oh, why'd I go there?
Well, John, what I was gonna say is there's a question inside the text chat which states, what do you think about the Rockefeller and Rothschild family is doing to corrupt the banking system? Is it because both families, are worth around 500 trillion US dollars? Can you go into maybe those larger families and
It could be. Well, no, it could be. The point is, I blame the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers for the state of the planet because they were the owners for the last 200 years. No one's going to deny that. There are books where they proudly point out that they control governments of the world. And that means all the miserable shit they could have fixed. If I could figure out a way by asking the Supreme Court of Canada, that's it, in 1981, first time, I want you to restrict the bank's computers to a pure service charge and abolish the interest charge. That means when I go to the bank, I don't want to borrow 10 and owe 11. I want to borrow 11 and owe 11, and I'll give the banker 1. Okay? I don't want the banker to take his fee in money I don't have. I'm willing to pay him his fee in money I get. See the difference between a service charge and a usury? So, if I borrow my 11 up front, I can pay him his service charge, I can earn it back and settle my debt. But, even until the end, settle my debt. But if he's asking for 11 when he only printed 10, then we're going to have a war. So, in the 1980s, I asked the Supreme Court to restrict the bank's computers to a pure service charge. And if that had been done, the UNICEF estimate at the time was 17 million dead babies a year due to poverty. It's gone down to maybe 13 or 14, but let's say 15 million over the last 30 years, average. Now, throw in twice as many as that in adults dying for useless poverty reasons, and you're talking about 40 million a year croaking for no reason over the past 30 years since I asked the Supreme Court to give all those people an interest-free credit line so they can buy food, clothes, housing, and then pay it back with labor. And they said no. So, that's why I like to think that Borlaugin, Chief Justice, when he tries to get into heaven, he's got to face 1.2 billion souls who knew he had the power to reprogram Canada's banks to save them, and he didn't. The numbers being gambled are frighteningly high because it's just like a conveyor belt of death, with numbers going over it. If you press the button to stop it, there's still momentum, and a few are still going to go over. But if you wait a week before pressing the button, now you get an extra slab of people going over for no good reason because you waited. Well, these guys waited 30-some years before we can press the button to stop the genocidal banking machine, and that means all of those souls who wouldn't have died if they fixed it are their responsibility now that they're up there. And what a number. 1.2 billion people could have been living now in wealth, because there's enough to go around, enough material wealth, just not enough money at the time. 1.2 billion extra souls would be alive today if those judges had reprogrammed the banking system to get rid of the flaw. So, what do I think of the Rothschild family who are responsible for that 1.2 billion in the last 30 years, and maybe another 600 million in the 30 before that, another 300 million in the 30 before that, and the numbers are incredible that one family could have resulted in so many lost souls that could have made it if they're so greedy. That's why I call them pig people. People who hog the resources so much people around them start to die. Pig people. Right. You got to have a pig gene in them, and I think calling a Rothschild a pig is an insult to pigs.
Right, so
anyway, that's what I think of the Rothschild and the Rockefeller pigs. But I mean, that's right out of the Bible. That's all Satan asks them to do. All Satan asks the rich to do, Bill Gates, in the Revelations, hold on tight to what you have. Don't help the guys that are drowning. I'll take care of them. You just hold on to as much as you can. And that's all Satan asks guys to do, to help him doing the bad guys. So when Billy Gates gets to heaven and they say, Billy, why did you need the life support of 100 million man-years when you could only use one? And what's Billy going to say? I just hogged it because I was scared? No, he's going to say I must have had a swine gene in me. Anyway, that's what I think of the rich.
Well, hey, John, also, can I ask you, can you go into the item that's, obviously incredibly important of, if the government didn't come in and bail out the banks, that, U.S. citizens and the economy and the population and potentially the world, because we're so interconnected, would have been in a much, much worse situation. So can you kind of take, or I guess I'll take the devil's advocate side, and can you kind of go into, my point of view where, let's say, hypothetically, if I'm saying, our country would have been in a totally worse situation if it weren't for the bank bailouts, that's why they were so necessary. Can you kind of go,
right.
Can you go into that subject, please?
Yeah. Well, Well, just imagine that every gang of slaves has an owner who's in debt to the loan shark who comes by once a year. The point is that if they don't get an injection of money, they're all going to suffer, right? Now, obviously, an injection of money to all the slaves would have been better because they would have put it in the bank, and the banks would have still had those deposits to work with the reserve ratios and stuff. But instead, they gave it all to 18 or 20 guys to put it all in the bank and make the banks da-da-da-da-da. Get it? I'm saying they needed an infusion of money to cover the shortage because the interest can't pay, right? And all they did was solve it by giving it all to the rich guys instead of the poor guys. But it solved it in its own way. Get it? But it didn't solve the problems of the poor guys. Had they given it to the poor guys, maybe it wouldn't have solved the problems of the rich guys. But the point is, that's all that happened. It needed an infusion and it would have crashed and taken the whole world down with it. And that's why I never bemoaned any kind of printing of more money, because I know we're really suffering shift B inflation, and printing more money just means a little bit less foreclosures right now, even if it'll mean a little more later when that interest bill is due.
So what then is your response to those, Occupy Wall Street people who say that, we would have rather them not, do you think that the Occupy Wall Street individuals had any point if you're saying that it was okay to, bail out these banks? Or is it more, do you think that they were coming in from the item of, why did it only benefit the rich? Is that where you think the most of their concern was?
Well, see, the Wall Street people weren't bemoaning the right problem. They were bemoaning who was driving the malfunctioning machine. You want jail the drivers, you know what I mean? Well, how does that fix the machine? What's going to change? Oh, nice one, we changed the drivers. Yeah, well, it's still crashing. So, the problem isn't solved by jailing anybody. The problem is solved by reprogramming the bad software that says for every 10 credits out, 11 got to come back or we take your house. That's it. I don't know where else I can go. That's the problem in a nutshell. We're all stuck in this shorted money, and if I don't get yours, you've got to try and get mine, and someone always got to go under. And people will make war and do dirty things before they lose a kid to the system. That's basically how it worked in the old days, and pretty well the same now. So, how else can I allay that worry?
Right. So what about? I'm looking at the text chat now. What are your views on the Federal Reserve? Can you go into that, John?
Well, put it this way. If the Federal Reserve were going to run its chips like a casino, interest-free, and you could log on to the Fed and open a PayPal account, and then you could pledge not your MasterCard and Visa, but you could pledge 1,000 hours of labor and get $10,000 bucks. That is what I would love at the Fed. But If they started a PayPal at the Treasury where you could log on and pledge 1,000 hours of labor to get 12,000 interest-free Treasury bucks, that's fine too. And if they won't work, I'll open a let system. Let you log on with 1,000 hours, and I'll run our PayPal for it. See, it doesn't matter whether it's the Fed or the Treasury or a local let that's going to liquefy your time. It's your time back in the chips. You pick which one you want to go to, and the others can't use you no more. So, I mean, Dennis Kucinich wanted to abolish the Fed, set up the Treasury. I agree. Bill 2990 was the salvation of the U.S. The fact nobody backed him is a laugh. And, it's a perfect King Henry tally. Interest-free money, pay for infrastructure. Every credit is backed up by labor. So the more labor money you issue into circulation, the less the government's trash is going to have an inflationary effect. And we cannot, why Bill 2990 didn't make it with all these money reformers in the States has continued to elude me. But I built up Kucinich every chance I could, and I tore a piece off Ron Paul for being a dinosaur yellow rock club.
Great. I'm looking through the rest of any other questions. So how about we begin to discuss, and I'll let you obviously take the mic on this one, but how about talking about the current status of where the banking system presently is. I mean, do you see a lot of foreseeable issues coming to fruition in the short term, in the medium term? You hear people who talk about, you have the, what's their names, Peter, he's very, pessimistic about the...
Schiff.
Yeah, there you go. Yep. The Peter Schiffs of the world who talk about, interest rate...
Call them Schiff Day believers. So let's establish that right away.
All
these guys who think you can't print money for paychecks, what else but disaster looms, right? They got no money. They owe more than they got, and they don't think they can print any more money without causing inflation. So what else is Peter Schiff going to say but disaster's coming? He doesn't know about Schiff B inflation.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that he doesn't know about it? What would be preventing him from knowing about it? And why wouldn't he be on the same terms as you? What prevents someone such as him not seeing this situation the same way that you see it?
I'm an engineer, grounded in reality. He's an economist. And the more economics you study, the more your brains get scrambled. What can I say? Economics is the only science that exhibits George Orwell's doublethink. You know what doublethink was? That's the ability to accept two contradictory points of view as both true at the same time. Okay? Think about that. You believe that that's black and that's white and they're both at the same time. That's doublethink. Now, economics has the only example of doublethink I've ever been able to demonstrate. I was at a time bank conference in Chicago in 2000, and there was a lady, economist from Ithaca Hours coming in, and I'd been telling the crowd, she wasn't there yet, and I was saying, here's how I trick all economists into contradicting themselves. I say, when I get a loan at the bank, where does that money come from? And every economist says, I'm telling the crowd, well, from depositors' funds. And then I say, but doesn't economics teach the reserve ratio, the multiplier, that when I'm getting a loan, I'm getting new money? And they go, that's right. Okay? So, if you go to my site, johnturmel.com/bank.jpg, JPG, you'll see that either the money is old money, depositors' funds, or it's got to be new money, out of the tap, brand new chips, but it can't be both. And economics gets them to believe that depositors' savings are new money. So in comes this lady economist, and I go to the crowd, watch this. I say to her, hey, when banks make loans, where do they get that money? And she goes, from depositors' funds. And I said, yeah, but doesn't economics teach that when you get loans, it's brand new money? And she went, that's right. And I went, ta-da, and the crowd broke up laughing. So, economists believe that when you get a loan at a bank, it's like a piggy bank, old chips, and it's like a casino bank, new chips at the same time. And I, as an engineer, have said, whoa, there's two pipes. There's a reservoir pipe, okay, and there's a pipe to the tap. So you can't tell me that it's coming out of the reservoir and it's coming out of the tap at the same time. They ain't the same. It's one or the other. And yet economists, short circuit in the brain, believe this completely contradictory point of view without even realizing it. So economists were never told about shifty inflation, and they suffer brain damage from George Orwell's, double think about how money's created. So what do you want me to say about economists getting things wrong? Can you name me an economist who ever got anything right? Get my point? That's why the world's been waiting for an engineer to get economics right and relegate that pseudoscience to the old torture chambers where it should be, and let systems engineering take over the money system.
So I have a good question for you. What, just playing devil's advocate, what ultimately, if we took your philosophy and implemented it, one wants to think that it's not going to be perfect. So what potential?
Whoa! This is ideal engineering.
Right.
So 1 over S.
Right. So
can't screw up.
Right. So what sort of?
Not like an economist saying maybe. I'm saying for sure. I bet.
Right. So what sort of flaws could come from your system if you implemented it? What could you?
Let's say you. Okay. Let's solve this together. Let's both walk into the Taj Mahal in Atlantic City. We're going to walk over to the chip cage and now pose your question to the cashier. What can go wrong with your chips? To the cashier, he'll go, I don't know. Nothing's ever gone wrong with our chips. You see how going back to the casino model short circuits so many concerns. It's too simple. What can go wrong with the chips if they go out for cash and assets and come in for cash and assets? Can't be screwed up. That's stability in engineering. 1 over S is what's called a stable system. 1 over S plus I, minus I, which means positive feedback, is unstable. While 1 over S plus I, negative feedback, that's stable. Negative feedback is used to, when you're going off the road, you want to come back a bit, you know what I mean? And home in where you should go. But positive feedback is I bring in a mic speaker. Boom! So gone. So that's death. And that's what you're facing. Exponential death. So
right.
There's an easy fix, and that is simple. There's so many easy fixes. Lincoln's treasuries, mountain hours from the bottom up, Unilets at the United Nations, telephone minutes being traded. If everybody just simply said, Bell, please let us swap our minutes, even if we're all in the negative, we can still swap our negatives, and there's our new money. No more interest. So there are too many ways for it to be fixed, and that means that the victims are victims due to their own ignorance.
Right.
Because all they got to do is get into push for a system where you can pay with your cell phone minutes. How come Kenyans and Nigerians now can transfer cell phone minutes and we can't? What? We're not as smart as them? We don't have as good technology as them? Nah, we still got stuff bankers want to confiscate. They're broke. They got nothing but time. And bankers don't value human time like a time bank does. See, time is the real collateral behind all loans. And they don't accept human time as valid collateral of itself. And we do, which means that the underground money, based on the human time of all the people who can't qualify for the other one, is going to become the bigger money someday, especially when we're all on loan. So that's happening now. Whole countries, Kenya, Nigeria now, are getting their own cell phone bucks. And, others will follow. Cell phone cards, $20 cards. Pretty good piece of money, right? If everybody's got a cell phone, can use it, right? So who needs to pay interest to a loan shark when you got a cell phone card? They're getting killed, the loan sharks. Their system's breaking down. That's why they're cracking. But they're not going to take along any Kenyans with them or any Nigerians. They got their alternate system. And they're not going to take on the people in Spain and Greece and Argentina with their barter networks ready to go the next time they crash. Now, sure, people are stupid. In the mid-'80s, Argentina crashed. 6 provinces started up their own interest-free money, brought inflation down from 1,000 to 36%. And as soon as they paid off all their debts and bought back their collateral, the bank said, okay, opening our doors again. Loan sharking, step right up. And the suckers put away their provincial currencies and got back into debt. 15 years later, they're busted again. 2001. Again, provincial currencies and big barter network. 5 years later, all foreign debt paid off. Well, now they're putting away their barter networks and provincial currencies that they're solvent again, and they're going to be able to get loans from the loan sharks again. You get it? They use the alternative currency as emergency money, and then as soon as the loan sharks open their doors, they rush back to getting debt, exponential debt. So, what can I say? There's history, you know.
Right.
And I would expect that as soon as crises stop, like in Russia, where they had 25,000 corporate currencies and 750 municipal and state corporate currencies, I bet you as soon as the money came back, they stopped there too. So, it's purely an emergency measure. Maybe the whole world going to crash at the same time. They make the whole world turn to the same emergency measure at the same time. I just hope we don't have to crash. A lot of dead people before we fix it.
Right. So another question, and I'm glad that that we're having this discussion because some people have filled into the room, which is great. What I was going to say to you is, Sean asked a question. Can you discuss some of the inflationary risks that would be associated with federal accommodative monetary policy?
Well, poker chips can't inflate. If Abraham Lincoln paid out the U.S. dollar greenback for a day of labor from a soldier, or an hour, whatever, the point is that that's always going to be worth an hour's worth of labor. And that guy's going to be able to pay his tax when Abe charges the tax for that piece of labor that upheld the kingdom. Just like King Henry's tallies. King Henry spent as many tallies as he needed, as many of the royal poker chips as needed for the upkeep of the realm. And at the end of the year, he asked for the depreciation on the roads and the houses and the stuff, and for the full amount for soldiers and doctors and nurses and all services. So, services get collected at the end of the year in taxes, and depreciation gets collected as it happens per year. But King Henry's tallies could not suffer inflation, and they lasted for 700 years until the Bank of England talked the sucker king into switching to loan shark money.
Right. So, how about just because you have the Occupy Wall Street experience, how about 1 second.
Well, one of my favorite stories when I'm at a protest with kids like that. For instance, remember the Jubilee 2000 movement? In 2000, forgive the debts of the poorest nations. Geez, what about number 44, Ecuador? Don't they count? Anyway, I was there. Big banner at my website, Jubilee 2000, cancel the debts. And underneath me, you see with my picket sign, cancel debt service, not debt. So I'll pay my debt for stuff I got. I just won't pay the debt for stuff I didn't get, interest. Get it? So people give me something of value. I want to pay it back. I want to honor it. But loan shark debt service, dream on. You're stiff. And that's basically right out of the Bible. Jesus' resistance to the banksters is laid out in the parable of the talents and the parable of the minas. You got time? Resistance to the bankers. Okay? And of course, Wall Street, that's bankers, right? So, in the parable of the talents, the story is a master, the kingdom of heaven is like where a master leaves his estate and calls his servants together as slaves, gives the first guy 5 talents of gold, second guy 2 talents, third 1 talent. Says, go forth and do business. So, 10 years later, he comes back to collect. The first guy gone forth, and he multiplied his 5 up to 10 in the marketplace. He comes back and says, here's your 5 and 5 more. Well done, says the master. Second guy comes back with 2, says, here's 2 more. Well done, says the master. Third guy comes back. Well, first of all, he buried it. Didn't go work with it in the village. The weakest servant. Came back, said, master, here's your gold. It's all you're going to get. I knew you're a hard man who reap where you do not sow. So I was afraid to lose what was yours. So I buried it. Here's what's yours. Gave him back his gold. The master said, "You lazy servant, you should have known I'm a master who takes where I do not sow. You should have put my money with the bankers and got me what was mine with interest. Take what is his and throw him out into the alley where men weep and gnash their teeth." And in the parable of the Minas, he says, "Take what is his and slay him in front of me." Because in those days, you could kill your debtor. What a way to get a debtor, right? So anyway, that's the parable of the talents. And I've had judges tell me, well, that says interest is okay because the master's taking interest, right? Unless there's a trick to the story. Now, because he said the kingdom of heaven is like, and then he describes a loan shark, right? Loan sharking to his slaves and then executing the guy who won't pay him. This is heaven? A place where men weep and gnash their teeth in alleys? Does this sound like heaven to you? Where the lazy are, executed? Of course not. It's a trick. Well, here's the trick. I got a little poem I could do, but it's on the internet, but I'll just explain it fast. When he was a kid, the servant realized that the master loan shark used to come by and lend everybody the principal, try and collect the principal plus interest, and always ended up enslaving someone. He noticed that the chariot making industry, Ford chariots, Chrysler chariots, General Mules, and they all build chariots. Well, they all borrowed 10 million dinars. They all promised to pay back 12 million dinars. Well, they all build their chariots, and the first guy sells, GM sells his for 12 million. Second guy sells his for 12 million. And Chrysler says, geez, I've only got 6 million left. I can't sell all my stuff. Master comes back, and then the chairman from GM comes back and says, you gave me 10, and here's 12, 20%. Well done, come on in. Then the chairman from Ford comes back and says, you gave me 10, and here's 12, 20%, come on in. Finally, the chairman from Chrysler comes back and says, gee, you gave us 10, but we couldn't sell all our chariots. The other guys took our principal to pay their interest. We can't sell, we can't pay. And the master said, you know I'm a master who reaps where I do sow, and I want you to pay me what is so you should have put my money with the bankers and brought me what was mine with interest. Minimum. And you lost my money. So take from the Chrysler employees, give to those who haven't, throw them out into the alley where men weep and gnash. So the alley in the parable of the talents is about unemployment and poverty and no money. And it's caused by interest. Now, the servant is depicted as a lazy servant for not getting into business like everybody else. And many preachers say, oh, he didn't use his talents. He didn't expand his talents. He deserves to be punished. Of course, in those days, a talent was 75 pounds of gold. And if it was your musical talent, how did the guy go bury it in the ground? So, it's not your physical talents, it's gold. So anyway, now imagine the servant now sniffing his master saying different. He says, I know you're a master who reaps where you do not sow, and where I come from, I call that a thief. So I was afraid to lose what was yours, because you're a hard man, so I buried it. Here's what's yours. Now, you're stiff for the interest, but I caused you no loss. Well, the banker then thumps him out and either throws him into the alley of poverty or executes him. But in the meantime, why was this guy called a lazy servant when all he had to do was go put the gold with the banker and bring his master his interest, right? If that's all you had to do when the loan shark gave you 10 G's and said all you got to do is bring me my interest, what would you do? Bury it in the ground or go stick it in a bank account and bring him his interest if he's going to kill you? Same idea. Why would the servant undergo death? The lazy servant, when all he had to do was put money in the bank. That was the lazy way out. Why did he die? And why did he end up in the alley where men weep and gnash their teeth? It was his way of showing the injustice of having to pay back more than he got. And he wasn't going to try and get it off his neighbor to try and survive his death gamble. So he took the consequences of doing his master no harm. So that strategy is what I used in the 1980s to help people fight their foreclosures. They accepted responsibility for the principal they got, but they repudiated the interest, just like the slothful servant did. And, of course, we cite that example as our resistance to the banking system. We accept the social credit of the debt, and we repudiate the anti-social credit portion of the debt. So, right out of Jesus' parables, Jesus was a bank fighter, not a sin fighter. The original Our Father was, Our Father who in heaven art, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as heaven the same. Give us today tomorrow's bread, and forgive us all our debts, as we forgive our debtors all their debts with no regrets. So, the real Our Father prayed for forgiveness of debts. Now, that's happened a couple of times recently in Argentina. And here's how that happened. You remember in Argentina when they dumped all those local currencies into circulation? They even talked about farmers' IOUs for tons of grain were accepted by Monsanto, GM, Ford, because they had no money. They had to take a ton of grain IOU from a farmer. And that means the farmer was creating his own money in Argentina. Now, here's the point. You're running a business, restaurant, no government money around. All of a sudden, here comes this farmer, says, listen, I got no cash, but I got this receipt worth $1,000 down at the dock with a ton of grain. How about doing my daughter's wedding? Well, the guy can take that piece of money and he can go do something else with it. Now, there's a famous example of the hotelier. And he is aware of everybody's bills in town. Now, he owes him, and he owes him, and he owes him, and he owes him. But they all have no money. And then comes a rich stranger to town, drops his $100 in the vault for the night. So the guy knows everybody's situation, runs up to the first guy and says, look, if I lend you this, I want you to pay him his 100, pay him his 100, pay him his 100, 100, 100. We'll wipe out 100 debt off everybody before it gets back in the vault. Okay. Now he says, how many guys got debts left? He can go do the next 100. Well, that's what happened when Argentine barter currencies hit the streets. People all of a sudden had money that wouldn't give them interest and lots of opportunity to earn more. So what are you going to do with a lot of cash in your midst? You're going to pay down your personal debts. And that means that because of the influx of all this local currency in Argentina, everybody's internal debt got paid down. All overlapping debt. And you're left just with a few net debtors while all the federal money's going to pay off foreign debt. So, that is the advantage of local currencies in your economy because they free up your cash to do other stuff. Tom Kennedy, school teacher, famous, usury-free fighter. First guy ever ran a lead system in a school. And he also noticed that none of the kids wanted to go into negative first. They all wanted to be positive. But, I missed where I was going with Tom. It was such a great example. Anyway, I'll think about it later. Where was I going? Can you remind me?
In terms of Kennedy, you brought up a specific person you want to reference?
Just before that.
Just before
that. What was I talking about?
John, you moved too quickly. You moved too quickly for me, my friend.
I know.
And
Okay,
I'm trying to get some other people here as well.
Sure, okay. Maybe somebody can add where they want to hear it finished.
That's all right. So yeah, no, not a problem, John. And so, what I guess I would say, next is, why don't you give us some insight into how the current system right now can either get cleaned up towards the future, or where you sort of see the banking system. Maybe this is a better question. Where do you see the banking system going, 5, 10 years from now? Because this is sort of a critical moment for it, no? Where it's like either, we're faced with sort of a critical moment of how to handle our bills and how to take, our country forward. I know you're in Canada, but why don't you maybe give us some insight to that?
I'll solve your problem. Okay.
Go right ahead.
I'm opening up a PayPal at the. Are you an American?
I am American. Yes.
Are you American?
I'm a New Yorker.
All right. I open up a PayPal at the U.S. Treasury. You go pledge labor. I trust you'll work it off. I now lend you, or you borrow out new chips, government chips, to settle all your mortgages and interest-bearing debts. Okay. After that, all your payments will go against principal. So, if you had $100,000 in student debt when you started, at 10 or 20% interest a year, and you're going to end up with $100,000 in student debt, except no more 10 or 20% a year. And that means that when all your payments go against principal, someday you get out of debt. So your salvation is to get access to a national bank account. So you can borrow national money, interest-free, without any loan shark intermediaries. I don't think it could be clearer than that. And it's as easily done as the Treasury setting up a PayPal and accepting time as well as Visa. And all your problems are over, aren't they?
Great.
Right?
So Dwayne asks a question: how are we supposed to clean up the mess left behind because of liberal policies? These policies made it impossible to hand money to anyone with a pulse. Made it possible to hand out money to anyone with a pulse.
Well, I'm not too worried about how past administrations have screwed up. I'm talking about how a future one can. So, Abraham Lincoln's money couldn't. It was labor-backed green dollars. King Henry's tallies couldn't. They were labor-backed wooden dollars. Roman copper IES grave money. They were copper-backed, labor-backed copper dollars. So, it doesn't matter the medium. It just matters that it be labor-backed, because labor is the true wealth of civilization. Everything else is measured in it. There's nothing out there that you have in your home that can't be measured in the labor it took to get it there. And that's always including people. So labor is the universal numeraire, and time is the easiest way to count it. And we're almost there, where your labor is as good collateral as gold is. That means it's not just the gold standard of money anymore, but it's the times money. And isn't it neat that that was only coined at the United Nations? We came up with the Unilets resolution. Imagine that. Coined the time standard of money right there and then. So anyway, that's it. Once you can access an interest-free bank account, settle all your debts, mortgage-bearing debts, interest-bearing debts, and future payments all go against principal, that is what I call banking on earth as in heaven.
Great.
Can't imagine Jesus loan sharking to you in heaven, right? Coming by every weekend, payday, I want some of your pay. Come on. He beat up the loan sharks. A lot of people say he was against the tourist industry, didn't like the pigeon sellers, but come on, you're supposed to bring a bunch of squawking shit and pigeons with you? You're a tourist? Of course you need a tourism industry. He wasn't mad at the pigeon sellers. He was mad at the loan sharks for death gamble, not pigeon sellers for tourism. Gouging. A lot of priests think Jesus is mad at the tourist gougers, rather than the death gamble enslavers. So, boy, there's a lot of screw-ups in religion. But anyway, that's another story.
Great. So, John, is there any specific message, that you think you want to send to people who, let's say, might have misunderstood the Occupy movement? Obviously, got a ton. Why don't we talk about this subject? Actually, I'd be anxious to hear your opinion on the role the media plays in the Occupy movement. Can you give us your stance on, how the media either distorted or supported the Occupy movement's message, and what role they played, and perhaps how, when it comes to the Occupy movement, how a tool such as Vonvo could, help in providing awareness for people about what really, what the true message was. Can you go into that?
Well, I mean, if you were a smart government, you'd infiltrate every organization. And they do. And especially protest organizations. And that's why most of the speakers who hog all the airtime are talking about stuff of no consequence. Robin Hood taxes, bankers who need to be fined and jailed, you know what I mean? Go after the drivers, splashing in the pool. These are the guys that the media now lionize as representatives of the Wall Street movements, all screw-ups with no alternatives. While the odd guy with an alternative in the background doesn't get hurt. So, I think the media are simply paid prostitutes who wouldn't dare report anything that's going to cost their masters a buck. And cannot expect truth out of pay prostitutes. Entertainment, sure, funny lies, sure, but not reality. But luckily, we do have an underground media and all sorts of opportunities to get the truth out there. And that's why it's a new world coming, because people are wise enough. But as the money reformers of the planet don't get shift B inflation right, they will never be able to say we have to print more money.
And John, can you just clarify? Can you just clarify exactly like the definition of shift B inflation for those who don't, understand? Can you just give us a nice short and sweet definition of what that exactly is?
Okay. If you look right up there, you'll see it's like a big H where my finger is now, right there. A big H. And on one side, you got dollars, and on the other side, you got collateral. And running between, you got a bar that has $100 with 100 units of collateral. Now, economics teaches that if you got more money, shift A, chasing the 100, that's inflation. And I'm simply pointing out, having played the death gamble game earlier, that it can also be the same money, 100, chasing 9 watches. And I came up with the equation for the number of guys who get knocked out of the game and the number of watches seized, which is the size of shift B inflation. So economics teaches only more money chasing the goods in front of your face, but they don't say anything about disappearing collateral behind your back. Now, why would any science teach only up on this side and don't bother looking it down on that side? Unless it's a scam and down on that side is what's really happening. And I think I proved that by the Argentine example, where they had 1,000% inflation. The 6 provinces dumped a whole bunch of bond currency into circulation, paying employees for labor-backed money, and inflation went from 1,000% down to 36%. Despite the central bank saying it's worse. He's looking at more shift A, and all of a sudden, less inflation. Proust B. And that's shift A, they see the movies with poor people around with wheelbarrows full of money, empty store shelves. It ain't shift A, it's got to be shift B. There's only one other alternative. And yet, once you understand that putting money into circulation, labor-backed money, fights inflation, brings it down, well, then you can say we got to print more money to fight inflation. But that goes against everything everybody's learned. And most money reformers are also brainwashed with that delusion. The big lie of economics. I call it inflation gate. Getting the whole world to believe that inflation can only be up over there. And guess what? Wouldn't it be a joke on the if it really was down over there? So, I think I proved pretty clearly that since we ain't got too much money and it ain't up over here, what's left? Gotta be down over there. Inflation shift B.
Great. So, we've been talking for almost an hour, John. I'm happy we did, because this is great. To get this information and to for new people to see the platform, which is awesome. Why don't we end with this question? What message?
Why don't we end on the top?
Yeah. So ultimately, in terms of the top, in terms of this topic, you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Right. So,
okay. Well, I've gone in detail the power of the banker, life and death over the borrower, to decide whether he'll turn on the tap for this guy or not turn on the tap, foreclose, and then let him buy him. Too much power for private industry to have. That's too much corruption. Now, when you also throw in the fact that they have to make everybody short up front so that everybody is in this ugly death gamble, and then you compound it by these guys being able to abuse that power. They're not just killing the guys who should be killed. They're killing guys who shouldn't be to save their friends. See my point? Not only is an ugly game where people get morted, but they get to choose who gets morted. And that's too ugly to leave them have. And that's why a United States-run government poker chip labor-backed money, or a bottom-up mountain hours let system back money, working both ways are coming at us. And I think that the top-down way is fast, but the bottom-up way is sure coming fast. All of Kenya, all of Nigeria, all of Argentina a while back, all of Russia, when their banks crashed, Butterbucks took over. And we're just waiting for another crash before they do everywhere else. So do not despair. I'm actually the good news bear. I talked about the corruption of the past. But he's got an online, open source, everybody can see your account, time bank account. Where are you going to hide it? Is dealing it possible? No more. New world here, almost. Johnny Engineer saying, keep heart, last another few years, you'll see banking done on earth as in heaven.
Great. All right, so John, why don't we? I did actually end up getting a message. Although, let me just see if there might be another question down there for you to address if you'd like. This wasn't a private. So what I was going to say, John, is I actually did end up getting a message from the Occupy Wall Street individual. He got caught up in Easter and he didn't even realize when he scheduled Sunday that wasn't going to work out. So he apologized. So what would be great is if maybe we end it here. Maybe we come up with a nice topic for this week, or during this week to maybe touch base on next week, and pair up you with that other individual. There's a few people that have been interested in speaking with you, and we're looking to penetrate the Occupy movement. So if we can start drilling down this subject, and anything else associated with it.
Heated debate would be fun.
What's up?
A heated debate would be fun.
Yes, we've yet to pair that up for you, and I'm anxious to do that. So I think, and you gave me some names of some people to try and reach out to, so I can definitely try and work on that this week.
Okay.
All right. So thank you so much. I'm glad we did this, and we'll definitely be in touch. And thank you so much. All right.
All right. Great. Bye.
All right. Bye bye. Just click.